12-minute break. I'm going to pause the recording. Okay, so next up we have one of the most important Python types for data scientists, namely Python dictionaries. Now, dictionaries are key value pairs. So just think about what I just said, key value pairs. So when you instantiate a new dictionary object, you are collecting a bunch of keys and values. Now, from the point of view of data science, think of this like you have a label which is associated with a value, okay? And from the point of view of maybe databases, you have a key which points at a value, which itself is a dictionary, which points at other values. Each of those keys point at other values. And we'll see at the very end of this notebook how to do that. So to instantiate or create an instance of a dictionary, we use curly brackets, and then we have this syntax here. What this is saying is that first name, the string first name, colon, the string John. So this is the key, and it points at this value, John. So first name points at John. Last name points at Doe. Age points at 34. Okay, so I'm instantiating this dictionary. And also you're seeing another very common practice in Python. And it's what I would call Pythonic. So Pythonic programming is programming in a beautiful, easy to read way for others. And I'll go on about that more later in the semester. But notice that I'm not extending this line out forever. It becomes hard to read, especially when you go out of bounds in like a text editor. It's easier to read to just do, okay, this is my first key value pair, comma, this is my next key value pair, comma, and add this white space. And these honestly could be like way over here, right? They could be, but if you're going to program in a Pythonic way, it's best practice to line them up with each other. Makes it easier to read. It's like stacking the values. You can do this with dictionaries like this. You can also do this with sets. You can do this with lists. Any type of object that is going over the bounds of the line in question. You don't want to exceed too many characters on a single line. So this is a very common practice, and that's all we're doing. There's nothing special about me stacking it other than I didn't want to end up way over here. Okay, and then we print it, and then I also print the items in that dictionary. So this is a method. Anytime you see the dot operation and then a function, so functions have input, that's why there's parentheses right there. This is a method, right? So let's see what happens when we run this. All right, so we instantiate our dictionary, we print it out, so here it is in the first line. And then the key value pairs appear here. And we see that this is a special type of output called dict items. But if we look inside of that, we see, oh, bracket, closing bracket, open, close bracket. That's a list. So this is returning basically a list of what? Tuples. And again, to emphasize the key value pairs, key value, right? Okay. So if we would like to access the value for a given key, it's as easy as calling the dictionary that you're looking at, open bracket, open bracket, pass in the key, close bracket. This is going to return the value. So I probably should rewrite this. That's not so clear. So let's just go ahead and look at how this works by copying this code. All right, so what's going on here? So the first line of code you should understand is just printing the dictionary, right? And then next up, we have sample dictionary, first name, and then these are all strings. See the red? This is all a string, right? And then because it's a format string, I have a curly brace, sample dictionary, open bracket, key, close bracket. So this is this is whatever this is going to be the value for this key. Okay. So we see that first name has the value John, as you would expect. Now there's something more going on here too. Notice that I've been using double quotes every single time that I've typed a string. But inside of this string, I type the single quotes. This is how you can nest strings inside of another string, right? Like I could have left off these double quotes and just had first name equals, like if I did this, like if I get rid of this right there and I get rid of this, it's not going to change anything other than the output, right? But as an instructor, I wanted to emphasize that I'm passing in a string. That's why I put the single quotes right there, right? Now I had to use single quotes because these single quotes are occurring inside of another string made by double quotes. So if you're going to format your strings in such a way that you want to emphasize like a string inside of a string output, you have to differentiate the types of strings that you use. Okay. For example, I could get rid of the double quotes here and do single quotes on the outside. But then everywhere on the inside, I have to use double quotes. Right? That's the name of the game. Even inside of here, I'm going to use double quotes. Okay. And it ran, right? So if you're if you want to print a string in a string or contain a string in another string, you have to have different types on the outside than on the inside. So that's another thing that you'll see. But hopefully the output is clear to you as people learning Python, right? That's the whole goal. I wanted it to be clear, right? So this key points at dough. It does. Age points at 34. Everything looks good. Now, if we want to access the keys of a given dictionary, we can use the keys method. And as you can tell, it takes no arguments and it returns the keys in our dictionary. So hopefully this is really like emphasizing a point. Over and over again, we have an object and we call a method. Object, method, object, method. When we start looking at machine learning code and importing libraries of code, importing functions and algorithms from libraries, this is the name of the game. You import a item and you access its customized properties by calling its methods. And if you want to know details about the given instance that aren't functions, these are called the attributes. We haven't seen those yet, but they do exist. Okay, so what's another method? Values. Maybe I want to know the values of a dictionary. Well, we use the values method. So these are the values of this dictionary. Okay. So what about if we want to add a new key value pair? Well, it's as simple as saying we call our dictionary and then open bracket, close bracket, but inside we pass our new key and then give the associated value we want. If we want to change a key value pair, we call the key that's already existed or exists in the given instance, and then just change what it should equal to, which means that what? Dictionaries are mutable. We can change their properties. So let's just go ahead and grab this code and see. What did I do wrong here? Something is not defined. Oh, I didn't grab this. Notice how quickly, by the way, my mouse was right here. Like immediately, it went straight here when I saw that error. You will get used to this. All of you are going to have errors all over the place at the first like few weeks of this course. So I didn't instantiate a new instance of a dictionary, so I call this new dictionary. So John, last name Doe, age 34. I print it out here. I make a nice little format, like a separating line with a print statement. And then I change the value of first name, and then I add a new key value pair. That's what's happening there. So if I run this, so this is before, and then this is after. I added a new key value pair there, and I changed the first name. Okay. Now, there are a few restrictions that we need to keep in mind when creating key value pairs with dictionaries. The one that you most often have to remember, and you'll get used to very quickly, is that, well, obviously keys can only appear once in the dictionary. That would make sense. But then also a dictionary key can be any type so long as it's non-mutable. So keys must be immutable. So things like tuples, strings, things that that cannot change values. They have to be set in stone. All right, those are the restrictions on the keys. Now, as far as the values can be literally anything. The values of the key value pairs in a dictionary can be any Python object that you want, which is awesome. Before I learned about a lot of the packages in Python, I was doing a research type of program that made conjectures on mathematical things, and I was trying to figure out how to like store all the data. And I didn't know about databases back then, and I ended up making my own database with dictionaries, because I just had dictionaries point at other dictionaries, point at other dictionaries, and I could just go down the hierarchy. It's like a tree structure that you can make. So that's what I'm going to try to show you now, is how to like mimic making a database. So here I make a dictionary called employees. What does the key John point at? John points at this dictionary. So this is like a description of that employee, right? So John points towards this, and if I then point at age, I get how old John is. And then if I point at position after, I get so forth and so on. So this is a container. Each of these contains information about this employee. And employees contains information about the employees themselves, right? As a whole. And then vendors, the same thing. And then I make my database to be this dictionary. So employees points at this dictionary. Vendors points at this dictionary. So let's see like how this works. It's actually very simple. So I just copy that and paste. Okay. So now if I access database employees, that's the employee data that I have, right? If I want to know specific information about the Jane, in this case, I call my database, give it the key employees, which points towards this thing, right? And then I pass in Jane to point towards this thing, okay? I shift enter. So then I know of my employees, the employee called Jane is 25 in management and makes 80,000 a year. Okay, so nesting these dictionaries is a from the ground up without any additional packages. It's a way to make databases. Now, I have not introduced for loops yet. That's what we're about to do. But I want to run this code here for you and see if we can kind of decipher what's going on. And I encourage you after lecture to come back to this code and see if it makes sense. So what's the output? By the way, look at that beautiful output. I spent a lot of time making these for you. I was making them even this morning, going back and like adjusting things. So I hope that you enjoy how nice that formatted output is. It looks like something that a database would spit out to you, right? So nothing has changed about the database dictionary that I made. This was all printed from that, right? So how did I do that? Well, there's a for loop, which we're about to learn about. I just know that field in that, whatever that means. But then, oh, I see a method on field capitalized. That's a string method. So maybe that's capitalizing with this print. Maybe it's doing that right there. And then printing out maybe there. And then what's going on over here? Field 2 is in something, right? And I encourage you to go back and look at this after lecture and see if you can make it prettier than it is, or try making your own little mini database, right? And this is one of the goals that I have for all of you. So you're all going to be exposed to theory, mathematics, packages, but one of the biggest parts of being a data scientist is being able to use code and manipulate things to do exactly what you want and be creative with it. And even if you don't have any programming experience, I can guarantee you by the end of the semester, you will be a very proficient Python programmer.
I'm sorry,
Okay.
what was field in this case?
Well, we're about to find out.
Oh, okay.
Because that's inside this thing called for loop, which brings me to my next Jupyter notebook,